Hi, it's Brother Rob Wilson. I want to show you a couple clips of Chris Rufo's challenge on Joy Reid's show, and this is why it does no good to try to have a conversation in logic and rational debate with people who use emotional reasoning, word salad, gaslighting, projection, and all the terms and all of the tricks of narcissistic abuse. Chris Rufo went on Joy Reid's show believing he was going to get an opportunity to express his beliefs. Not so much. It ended up just being a smear campaign for Chris Rufo and his opposition to critical race theory. He didn't get a chance to put a logical conclusion on anything. Here's one of the reaction videos after.
And he's a guest on my show right now. I was listening to this. She said, you're critical of CRT, critical race theory. And she says, you are making white man's demands. I'll give you all the time that I've got. Respond. Go.
Yeah, I mean, we know a couple things about Joy Reid. Her show's ratings are tanking. She only gets about 150 people in the key demographic per night. She's desperate, and unfortunately, she turned what I thought could have been a substantive debate about the issue of critical race theory into an unhinged monologue in which she shouted me down, refused to let me answer. And I think that the truth is really quite clear. I have the facts on my side. We know that critical race theory is being taught in hundreds of schools around the country. We know that millions of American parents are now revolting against this disgraceful and divisive ideology. And Joy Reid doesn't have the capacity to really engage with the facts. And that's why we get this really petulant and childish outburst that you just saw last night.
Chris, I think you're leading one of the most profound and important grassroots movements that we've seen in a long, long time, because this really is a grassroots revolt against what I think is racist teaching. I've got 45 seconds. I'm sorry it's all about, but go for it. It's yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are the facts. Critical race theory absolutely is being taught in schools. In Cupertino, California, they forced 8-year-olds to deconstruct their racial identities and then rank themselves according to a hierarchy of power and privilege. In San Diego, they're telling teachers that all white teachers are racist and that they should undergo mandatory anti-white or rather white anti-racist therapy. And the list goes on and on. We could talk about it at length, but the bottom line is this: critical race theory is a live issue. In many ways, it's the #1 issue in the country. And the average American is just starting to wake up and take charge of what's happening.
Beat it back, Chris Rufo, please, and come back on this show. And I've got a lot more time, because we'll make time available to you, sir, because we like what you're saying. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
It's not a history teaching. It's a rewriting of history, and it's a rewriting of destiny, according to the critical theory, or the critical theory, which is from Marxism. Let's go to the show. Let's go check out Chris Rufo as an invited guest on Joy Reid's show. This is why it does no use. It's of no use to go, because they're not going to let you talk. They're not going to let you express your opinions. They're going to shout you down. Joy Reid and Mark Lamont Hill are both infamous for this.
Dr. Ibram Kendi, who's a college professor, you call him the guru of critical race theory. So we reached out to him. I've interviewed him before. So we reached out to him because you say he's the guru of critical race theory. You name him a lot in a lot of your, both in your manifesto or your talking points memo, but also in your video. We reached out to him. We asked him if he's a critical race theorist. He said, I admire critical.
They're talking, they're speaking, they speak the jargon. They're co-operating along together with critical theory and critical race theory and critical queer studies and critical Native American. And there's critical theory for every one of what they call oppressed classes, critical gender studies, because this comes from critical theory. Critical race theory is an offshoot or a down branch of critical theory, which takes the Marxist ideology of bourgeois versus proletariat, or wealthy elite versus working class, and turns it from oppressor class to oppressed class. And they use intersectionality to connect all these groups together. And they have the highest ranking or the lowest ranking class of individual in the system. It's a racist system. It's a system of moral superiority by the oppressed classes, or the moral superiority and the moral majority, and the lowest ranking identity on the totem pole, the one they want to keep completely mute and speechless, is white males. Okay. Next thing, white females. Next rung up, black males. Okay. But these things, you got to go way up to where you intersect with the most amounts of oppressed classes. So up at the higher rung, the people with the voice who can talk are black, Islamic, Muslim, transgender. See, because they have a wider variety of oppression. Therefore they have the greater right to speak. No one else has a right to speak or an opinion.
Theory, but I don't identify as a critical race theorist. I'm not a legal scholar, so I wasn't trained on critical race theory. I'm a historian.
Kindergarten teachers aren't trained in critical race theory, but yet they're teaching it. They're teaching the ideologies of white supremacy, whiteness, which I don't agree to any definition of what defines. Don't define me. I'll define my own identity. Don't try to assign me an identity. It's kind of like, as far as gender goes, they're saying that, well, when you're born, your parents don't know what gender you are, so they assign you a gender. And so you have to search in your heart to find out what. No, come on. But I literally don't need anyone else assigning to me what the color of my skin means. Look at the content of my character. Thank you. But they're saying this is all word salad. I'm not, this began in critical legal studies, is where critical race theory stems out of. But critical race theory is not a legal, it's not a legal agenda. If you look on where it says, what is critical race theory, in the book by Delgado and the two founders of this, it's not connected to critical legal studies. They say that's the origin of it, but that's not what it's confined to.
And Chris would know this if he actually read my work or understood that critical race theory is taught in law schools. I didn't attend law school, which is where critical race theory is taught. It's really the only place it's taught. NBC has looked into everywhere, and it's not taught in.
It's taught in some first grade classes. It can be taught in kindergarten. It can be taught anywhere where somebody subscribes to this ideology. See, they're trying to throw technicalities in there and say it doesn't exist anywhere other than where it originated. It didn't get out of the laboratory in Wuhan. It's not in America. It's not in India. It's not in every. This is a pandemic, and people who are following the sacred prophets and sacred writings of those people who've hatched up this ideology, which assigns all of those people and claims they are this, that, or the other. It's a highly ideological, almost a religious sect, and they have religious texts, and they have prophets who are prophesying this is the way to change the world, to make it a better and utopic, perfect place. And yet, then they're claiming that's the only place it exists. It's out of the laboratory. Hello. The rabbit is out of the hat. Hello. Everybody's going around talking about this who subscribes to this ideology.
But hold on a second. This is the second thing he said, which is strange to me that you.
Let me respond. This is not a monologue. This should be a dialogue, right? Am I right?
It's my show, so it's how I want to do it. So let me read you one more.
Totalitarianism. I mean, if you're following a totalitarian Marxist doctrine, communist doctrine, which is 100 million corpses has been the result of communism and socialism in Russia and third world countries. Right now, the citizens of Cuba are trying to get their freedom and get their liberty from from communism and socialism. Okay, hello. And so, Chris, brother, it's not going to do you any good. They don't want to. It's not a debate, and it's not an exchange of ideas. It's an attempt to bring you on and make you look like an ignorant, racist, white supremacist buffoon. And no, for those people who have logic and reason, mission not accomplished. For all the supporters and the rhetoric and the emotionalism and the hype and the paranoia and the stereotyping, it worked for them. Oh yeah, you see, he doesn't know what he's talking. He didn't get a chance to talk
from him, because you've made a lot of claims about critical race theory saying that white Americans are inherently racist, that racism is inherent to whiteness, and that is one of the core charges that you're making about, you know, these sort of what you consider like sort of woke studies in school. This is what Ibram Kendi has said in his own words. He said, "We've been taught that racist is essential to who a person is. It's a fixed category. It's in someone's heart. That's one of the reasons why people are unwilling to or unable to admit the times in which they're being racist, because it's not just admitting I was being racist in that moment. Basically, we're tattooing racist on our forehead for the rest of our lives." Isn't that the opposite of what you're arguing?
Well, I'll say two things. First of all, it's very interesting to me that so many people are now running away from the race of the label of critical race theory. But
he's not a critical race theorist.
Hold on. I'm going to quote two critical race theorists. Barbara Applebaum in the book Being Good, Being White. She says, quote, "All white people are racist." Robin DiAngelo, who's another critical whiteness studies scholar, says that, quote,
nope.
all white identity is inherently racist. So what you're doing is you're playing a series of word games. You know that critical whiteness studies is a subfield of critical race theory?
No, it's not.
These things are all deeply interrelated.
No, they're not.
And I'm not going to let you play word games. And this is really, I think, the most.
They're completely interrelated. You can't separate one from the other. They all work together in in the mechanism of critical theory, which is oppressor and oppressed. And then intersectionality is the way you weave a network of all of the different oppressed classes together to rise up and overthrow, in other words, the proletariat, working class, overthrowing the bourgeois, the bougie. Okay, it's the same thing as Marxism. It came from the Frankfurt Institute, where they, said, well, this isn't working. This financial overthrow, pitting people against one another due to economic status isn't working. We're going to have to think of a new approach. That's when they began to look at the approach as oppressor and oppressed.
Thing.
Hold on. No.
Let me respond at least once. I haven't gotten a full sentence out.
Because I'm not going to let you see. One of the things that and I don't know, you probably never watched me.
I'm not going to let you actually have freedom of speech and express the ideas that you actually have. I'm going to try to convince people that you have ideas that you don't have. I'm going to try to convince people that you can look at this in one disintegrated section, disconnected from all the other elements that are working together to put this system, this socialist system, this way of looking at society, and this way of creating identity politics. They're creating solidarity among disenfranchised people who have been allegedly oppressed by the system, and these things are all interconnected. Robin DiAngelo and her book White Fragility and her claims that every white person is racist. It can't be separated from you. It can't be weeded out. And no one else is. This is only a crime of the white man.
Just, we didn't know who each other were, not so long ago. But I don't allow people to just make up and say lies on the show. It's just not really right to do that and let people hear. But hold on.
But
Robin
DiAngelo,
wait.
Am I right
Robin
or wrong?
DiAngelo is not a critical race theorist, and I want everyone to know that. Robin DiAngelo, I don't know who the other woman is, but she's not. But let's just go through a minute, because whiteness, and racist. Whiteness and racist.
Sure.
Where did the term whiteness come from?
Sure, and I think this is an important point, and I hope you let me actually get a full paragraph out about this.
Go for it.
Whiteness is the idea that there is some kind of metaphysical category in the world, that all white people are reducible to this essence of whiteness. Then what happens is that they load all of these negative connotations. They say that whiteness is by definition that includes white fragility, includes white privilege, includes internalized white superiority. And then what they do is they try to impose these reductive racial categories onto individuals. And I actually agree with Kendi's approach. I think that we should fight race essentialism. But the problem is that critical race theory enshrines race essentialism.
But you
and you see it in schools. And I'll give you 3 examples of critical race theory being taught in schools.
Hold on one second.
In Cupertino, California.
These are in your talking points, sir. Chris, these are in your talking points, and I know what you're going to say because you said it with Mark Lamont Hill. You repeat these same things. They're in this manifesto. People can read it online. Let me just go for a second.
It's an amazing thing that, yeah, you repeat these same things. It's like repeating 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2. This truth, you can keep repeating it and you can keep standing on facts and truth because they don't change. They don't waver. They're not shakeable. You know, and everything you see here is the tricks and tactics of narcissistic abuse. Word salad, confusion, projection, gaslighting, shaming, blaming, fear. Called him a liar. He can't even fully express an opinion without being called a liar. Well, wait a minute. Before you call me a liar, disprove what I'm saying here. Can't be done. He can't express any facts.
On the subject of whiteness, are you aware, since you say that I guess you're sort of a quasi-historian in your thinking, that whiteness was actually formed in the United States? That whiteness didn't even exist as a thing. Europeans were all European. They considered themselves Italian or Polish or whatever. When the colonists came here, they actually created the idea of whiteness. This is from the Smithsonian.
I agree with that.
As a way to distinguish themselves from what they call the savages, the natives, and from black people, from Africans, who even if you had a little African in you, you know, if you're Plessy, who's 7/8 white, if you are African in any aspect, that you are reduced of rights. So people that you don't like, that are doing this sort of wokeness training, are saying whiteness has always had power. There used to be a saying, I'm free, white, and 18. It was commonly said in the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So whiteness has power. So people who want to decouple whiteness from power, that's what you're annoyed by, right? Let me play a little bit of what you said. You did a speech. Hold on. You did a speech at the Claremont Institute in which you talked a little bit about how you really feel about the academics of it. Here it is. This is cut. I think this is it 3? Yeah, go for it. Play it.
I'm a white guy fighting critical race theory.
Do you identify as white?
I mean, I'm an Italian American, so you tell me. Lumping people into white, black, Asian, as you suggested, is such a crude and broad categorization.
There's these like really technical, Hegel interpretations, and it's like, I don't have time for this. I don't give a about this stuff.
So you don't give an S about this stuff. You're really just having a campaign to take everything that annoys white Americans and white conservatives.
No, that's not right.
You want to make a campaign and stuff everything in there that people annoy.
You played my highlight reel. Give me a chance to respond.
And you want to stuff
wrong.
it all into critical race theory, right?
What I don't think is right is that forcing 8-year-olds in Cupertino, California to deconstruct their racial identities and then rank themselves according to power and privilege. It's intersectionality theory, which was invented by Kimberly Crenshaw.
It's a separate thing.
Which is part of
a
critical
separate
race
thing.
theory.
No, it's not, dear.
You had her on your show. You know this.
Yeah, she invented
and
both
the bottom
things.
Line, Joy.
She invented
what you've
both
done
things.
in tonight's segment is exactly what I'm fighting.
She invented both things, and both things are coupled together. They can't be uncoupled. It's not like we're going over here and we're going to have, we're going to compartmentalize this, and this is not connected to that. They work together. It's a mechanism. It's a social organizing political mechanism. It's a regime change. They're going for a regime change.
I'm fighting against the manipulation of language. I'm fighting against language.
You're fighting against wokeness, and you don't like corporate wokeness, etc. I get it.
Euphemistic terms with subversive content. Because otherwise, you just say whatever you want, and then you back away from it, and you dance around it. It's not going to happen. Parents all over this country, they know what's happening in schools. They know what's happening in their public institutions. And you're seeing people revolt against this divisive identity politics. And you can dance all you want, but you're not going to stop people from understanding what's happening in their classrooms.
I actually appreciate that you said that, because, Christopher, what you basically, and you admit it yourself, that you've taken all of these sort of wokeness moments, corporate wokeness, corporate sort of woke money, woke capital, the things that annoy conservatives, and you've stuffed it all into the name critical race theory. It's really like it's like Christopher Rufo theory. You stuffed it all in. Here's what you said. You tweeted this. The activist.
Listen,
hold on, one second. I'm going to read you to you, and then you can respond to it. I'm going to read you to you, and then you respond to it.
No,
the activists are realizing that their ideas, once put into practice, are generating discontent, which is you just described. Their racial coalition is also breaking apart. Asian Americans, in particular, revolting against CRT, which is really Christopher Rufo theory because you made it up, is punishing them more than any other group. Then you said we have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. Aren't you just taking wokeness stuff that annoys you and calling it critical race theory?
No, not at all. The idea of the codification and decodification of language comes from the critical pedagogist Paulo Freire. And my strategy is to take these...
Now you're doing pedagogy, Christopher?
Yes.
Come on.
To take these techniques and use them against their own ideology. And I'll tell you, Joy, my strategy has been enormously successful. According to the Economist magazine poll, 64% of Americans now know what critical race theory is.
No, they know what Christopher Rufo theory is.
Of which 58% of them
you made up your own thing, bro. You made, my friend, you made up your own thing. You admitted you were going to do it. And I'm going to give you credit for one thing. You did create your own thing. Not a lot of guys in their 30s have created their own thing, labeled it something that already existed as a name, slapped that brand name on it, and turned it into a successful political strategy. You've done that. It's creating a lot of hell at school board meetings, but you did accomplish that. So, Christopher Rufo, thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Well,
really
Joy, I appreciate it, and I'll give you the position as the most prestigious Christopher Rufo theory scholar in the world. I hope next time you give me at least a chance to complete 2 sentences. I think it'll be a lot more fun.
Well, not if you're going to do
try
talking
again
points.
Next time.
They were your talking points, so
again.
people can read your talking points online because they're online as well. You can read all of them. Thank you very much, Christopher. Okay.
All I can say is it's a mockery. It was a mockery. It was a sham. It was ridiculous, and it's not worth going on Mark Lamont Hill's show or Joy Reid's show, trying to have a logical debate, trying to have a logical or meaningful conversation, because every one of these components is a part of the overall overarching purpose of the system, which is to reduce every individual to a group identity, and then assign negative connotations to people, regardless of their actions, regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their ideology. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm neither. I'm completely independent. So, and what I believe we need to fight against is against a divisive doctrine it's damaging to adults, let alone it's going to ingrain this conversation. This is not a history lesson. This is not about knowing the historical realities of this nation. It's about a judgment, a blanket carte blanche judgment against the entire system of the United States and every person in it. And any person who's black who opposes critical race theory is labeled some pretty unpleasant, racist names that I'm not even going to go into mentioning. And this, my friends, beloved, this is wrong. But this is what happens when you try to have a conversation. It's not going to happen. You're going to be called a liar. You're going to be demonized. You're going to be villainized. And the truth that all these components working together for the same purpose, to overthrow the democratic principles and the principles of freedom of speech in America. This is what this purpose is for. So, all right, let me know what you think. Share if you care. Peace.